The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark space between stars. It was bigger than most moons and filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Today was different from other days. Today, 847 different alien species had come together for one reason. They needed to talk about the humans. Ambassador Sarah Chun walked through the long metal corridors of the station. Her boots made soft sounds on the floor as she passed windows showing the stars outside. Other aliens moved past her, some floating, some crawling, some walking on more legs than she could count. They all stared at her. She was the only human. On the entire station, the meeting room was huge. It had seats and platforms and floating areas for every type of creature in the galaxy. The air smelled strange from all the different breathing systems. Sarah took her place at a small table in the center. Around her, thousands of alien eyes watched her every move. The speaker was a tall blue creature with 4 arms and no mouth. It talked through sounds that came from holes in its chest. When it spoke, machines changed its words into sounds that Sarah could understand. "We are here today because of a problem," the speaker said. "The humans have been taking worlds that do not belong to them. They build cities on planets that other species have claimed for thousands of years. They ignore our laws. They do not care about our treaties." Sarah sat quietly and listened. She had heard all of this before. A creature that looked like a giant spider stood up on its back legs. "The humans took 3 of our colony worlds last year," it said in a voice like breaking glass. "They said the worlds were empty. But we had mining operations there for 500 years. More aliens began to speak. A floating jellyfish-like being pulsed with angry red lights. "They destroyed our sacred sites on Kepler 7. They said they needed the land for farming." A rock creature that was twice as tall as Sarah rumbled like an earthquake. "They will not stop. Every month they take more worlds. Every month they build more ships." The complaints went on for hours. Sarah listened to all of them. She took notes on a small device. She did not speak or show any emotion on her face. Finally, the speaker raised all 4 of its arms for silence. "We have a solution," it said. "The Galactic Council has written the Terran Pacification Accord. This is our offer to the humans." A hologram appeared in the air above Sarah's head. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored areas. Blue areas belonged to the Council species. Red areas were marked as human territory. "We offer the human species 200 star systems," the speaker said. "These systems have good worlds for colonies. Some have valuable resources. Some are empty and ready for human cities. All we ask is that humans stay in these systems. No more expansion. No more taking worlds from other species. Follow our laws. Join our peaceful galaxy." The red area on the map was large, but Sarah knew it was tiny compared to the whole galaxy. 200 systems out of millions. It was like offering someone a single room in a city and telling them they could never leave it. The speaker continued. "These systems will give humans room to grow for thousands of years. Your people can build whatever they want there. You can govern yourselves. We only ask that you respect the borders and follow basic galactic laws about trade and war." Other aliens began to speak about how generous the offer was. The crystal beings from the ice worlds talked about giving up 3 systems they had wanted for mining. The plant creatures from the forest planets offered to share their knowledge about growing food in space. The energy beings promised to help humans build better power systems for their cities. "This offer shows the wisdom and kindness of the galactic community," said a creature that looked like a floating brain with tentacles. "We could have used force to stop human expansion. Instead, we choose peace and cooperation." Many aliens made sounds of agreement. Some clapped with hands or tentacles. Others flashed lights or made musical noises. They all seemed very pleased with themselves. The speaker turned its attention to Sarah. "Ambassador Chun, you have heard our offer. The Galactic Council waits for humanity's response. Will your species accept the Terran Pacification Accord?" Sarah looked around the room. Thousands of alien faces stared at her. She could feel their confidence. They believed no species could reject such a generous offer. They believed humans Would be grateful and relieved. Sarah stood up slowly. The room became completely quiet. Even the air recycling system seemed to stop making noise. The human race thanks the Galactic Council for their consideration, Sarah said. Her voice was calm and clear. We have studied your offer carefully. We understand the time and effort you put into creating this accord. The aliens leaned forward, waiting for her to say yes. We respectfully decline, Sarah said. The room exploded with noise. Aliens made sounds of shock and anger. Some jumped up from their seats. Others flashed bright lights or changed colors. The speaker's chest holes made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. Then she continued speaking. Humanity will continue to expand as we see fit, she said. We will take the worlds we need. We will build the colonies we want. We will follow our own laws and make our own decisions. A creature that looked like a walking tree shook its branches violently. This is madness. Do you not understand what you face? The combined might of 800 species stands against you. Sarah looked directly at the tree creature. We understand perfectly, she said. You offer us a cage made of gold and expect us to be grateful. You think we should be happy to limit ourselves because you say so? The crystal being from earlier made a sound like breaking ice. You cannot defeat us all. Your ships are few. Your weapons are primitive. We have technologies you cannot imagine. Maybe, Sarah said, but we will not bow to you. We will not accept limits placed on us by others. If you want to stop human expansion, you will have to do it by force. The floating brain creature pulsed with purple light. Then you choose war over peace? You choose destruction over cooperation? Sarah picked up her notes and put them in her bag. We choose freedom, she said. We choose to make our own path among the stars. If that means war, then so be it. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the aliens erupted in angry debate. Some called for immediate military action. Others demanded economic sanctions. A few wise voices suggested trying to negotiate again. The speaker's voice followed her to the door. You have doomed your species, human. The galaxy will not tolerate this defiance. Sarah stopped at the doorway and looked back. The galaxy can try to stop us, she said. But it should understand something first. Humans do not surrender. We do not compromise when our freedom is at stake. And we fight harder when we are backed into a corner. She left the room and walked back through the corridors to her ship. Other aliens she passed whispered and pointed at her. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. A few looked curious, as if they wondered what would happen next. As Sarah's transport ship left Nexus Prime, she sent a message back to Earth. Negotiations failed, she wrote. They offered us chains, we chose war, prepare for everything. Behind her, the Galactic Council began the largest military mobilization in recorded history. They had never met a species that simply refused to negotiate. They did not understand that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. They had given humanity a reason to fight. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On every world, in every space station, aliens gathered around communication devices to hear the impossible story. The humans had said no. They had rejected peace and chosen war instead. On the ice world of Zephyr Prime, the crystalline beings awakened from their long meditation. These creatures lived for thousands of years and moved like living glass. They had not fought a war in over 2,000 years, but they remembered how. Deep beneath the frozen surface, ancient shipyards began to hum with power. Machines that had slept for centuries started building vessels of pure crystal that could freeze space itself. The Zephyrian Council Elder, a being made of blue ice and starlight, spoke to his people through vibrations in the ground. The warm-blooded mammals think they can challenge order itself, he said. We will show them the cold embrace of absolute zero. Far across the galaxy in the burning core where stars were born, the colliery hive stirred to action. These beings shared one massive mind across billions of bodies. When one thought, they all knew. When one decided, they all acted. The colliery had not needed to fight for 500 years because no species was foolish enough to challenge them, the Hive Queen, a creature the size of a building with a brain that could calculate the movement of entire solar systems, sent her thoughts to every colony in existence. The individual-minded humans reject unity. Her voice echoed in a billion minds at once. They choose chaos over order. We will absorb them into our collective, willing or not. Across colony space, biomechanical ships began growing in vast organic factories. These vessels were alive, thinking creatures that could repair themselves and adapt to any threat. Each ship was part of the hive mind, making their fleets impossible to surprise or outmaneuver. In the void between galaxies, where normal matter barely existed, the Vorthen began to gather. These beings were pure energy wrapped in plasma shells. They lived in the hearts of stars and fed on radiation. To them, physical matter was just something that got in their way. Lord Vorthen Nexus, a being of crackling lightning and solar fire, called to his scattered people. Then the matter-bound humans contaminate space with their crude metals and chemicals. His voice was like the birth of a sun. We will purify the galaxy with cleansing fire. The Vorthen ships were not built but born from controlled stellar explosions. Each vessel was a miniature star, burning bright enough to melt planets and fast enough to outrun light itself. These three ancient powers had not worked together for millions of years. But the human threat was so unprecedented that old enemies became allies overnight. The Galactic Defense Coalition was born, and with it came the largest military force in recorded history. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Martinez stood before the Global Assembly. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human, nation, and colony. Outside, crowds gathered in cities across the planet to watch the broadcast. Martinez was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. But when she spoke, her voice carried the strength of an entire species. "My fellow humans," she began, "today we face a choice that will define our future among the stars." The assembly was completely quiet. Every person leaned forward to catch her words. "The aliens offer us chains," Martinez continued. "They dress these chains in pretty words and call them gifts. They offer us 200 systems when the galaxy contains millions. They ask us to kneel when we were born to stand upright." A representative from the Mars colony stood up. "Madame President, their military forces outnumber ours by thousands to one. Perhaps we should reconsider." Martinez looked at the man with eyes that had seen humanity's rise from a single planet to a star-spanning civilization. "Counselor Harris, let me tell you what our ancestors would say to that suggestion. When the first humans left Africa, they were outnumbered by every predator on the continent. When they crossed the oceans, they were outnumbered by every storm and wave. When they reached for the stars, they were outnumbered by every obstacle the universe could throw at them." She paused and looked around the room. "We did not become the dominant species on Earth by accepting limits. We did not reach the stars by listening to those who said it was impossible. And we will not bow to aliens who think numbers make them." "Right." The assembly erupted in cheers and applause. The sound echoed around the world as humans everywhere heard their leader's words. "Therefore," Martinez said when the noise died down, "I am activating Emergency Protocol 7. Every shipyard will work around the clock. Every factory will build weapons and ships. Every human will prepare to defend our right to exist as a free species." Within hours, human space became a hive of activity. On Earth, massive factories that had been building civilian goods switched to making weapons and armor. The orbital shipyards around Luna doubled their work shifts. Mars began producing millions of tons of refined metals for ship construction on the colony worlds. Human settlers who had been farmers and miners took up tools of war. Children who had played at being space marines found themselves training to become real soldiers. Grandparents who remembered Earth told stories of ancient wars to prepare the young for what was coming. The human irregulars, elite special forces, units that operated in the darkest corners of space, received new orders. These soldiers had been fighting pirates and rebels in the outer systems. Now they would face an entire galaxy in battle. Colonel Sarah Reeves commanded the 3rd Irregular Regiment. She was a veteran of a dozen conflicts, a woman who had seen humanity's enemies up close. When the orders came through, she gathered her officers around a holographic display of known alien fleets. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said in a voice rough from breathing recycled air on 100 different worlds, "we've trained for this our entire careers. We know their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. The aliens think they understand war because they've read about it in books. We're about to give them a practical education." Her soldiers nodded grimly. They had studied every alien species for years, learning how to fight creatures that could breathe poison gas or survive in the vacuum of space. They knew which aliens were vulnerable to sonic attacks and which ones could be blinded by bright lights. Meanwhile, intelligence networks on both sides worked frantically to gather information. Alien spies tried to infiltrate human space and were shocked by what they found. Human children played games that simulated warfare. Human entertainment was filled with stories of conflict and struggle. Human sports involved deliberate violence and competition. One alien spy sent this report back to the coalition. "The humans do not fear death in battle. They celebrate it. Their greatest heroes are those who died fighting against impossible odds. I do not understand this species." Human spies had their own disturbing discoveries. The coalition fleet gathering at the edge of human space was larger than anything in recorded history. Ships from 1,000 different worlds, each one designed for a different type of warfare. Energy weapons that could boil oceans, gravity bombs that could crush planets, bioweapons that could turn the air itself into poison. Admiral Elena Vasquez, commander of the Human Defense Force, studied the intelligence reports in her office aboard the orbital fortress New Gibraltar. The numbers were terrifying. The coalition had more ships than humanity had people. Their weapons could destroy entire solar systems. Their experience in warfare stretched back millions of years, but Admiral Vasquez had spent her career studying one thing above all others: how to win fights that couldn't be won. She looked at the tactical displays and smiled grimly. "They have the numbers," she said to her aide. "They have the weapons. They have the experience, but they have one fatal weakness." "What's that, Admiral?" her aide asked. Vasquez pointed to a report about alien psychology. "They've been at peace so long they've forgotten what real war feels like. They fight because they have to. We fight because we choose to. That makes all the difference." Across the galaxy, two very different kinds of preparation continued. The aliens gathered their overwhelming force with the confidence of certain victory. The humans prepared for the kind of desperate fight that had made them legends on 1,000 worlds. The storm was gathering, and soon it would break across the stars. 3 months had passed since the humans rejected peace. The coalition fleet had taken position at the edge of human space, spreading across dozens of light years like a wall of metal and energy. Never before had so many ships gathered in one place. The alien commanders felt confident that the sight of their massive force would make the humans change their minds. They were wrong. Admiral Vexver of the Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought called Eternal Glory. Through the viewing windows he could see thousands of ships stretching into the distance. Crystal vessels from Zephyr that looked like frozen lightning. Living bioships from the colliery that pulsed with their own heartbeats. Plasma vessels from the Vorthan that burned like small stars. "Surely the humans will surrender now," said his aide, a young hegemony officer with blue skin and large black eyes. "No species could look at this force and choose to fight." Vexver nodded slowly. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. And had never seen anything like this gathering. "Send another message to the human leadership," he ordered. "Tell them they have one last chance to accept our terms." But the humans did not respond with surrender. Instead, they did something the galaxy had never seen before. They began what they called psychological warfare. It started small. Human hackers, working from hidden locations throughout human space, began to break into coalition communication networks. At first, the alien security officers thought it was just random interference. Then they realized the humans were doing it on purpose. The first broadcast reached the Zephyrian fleet at 0800 ship time. Suddenly, every screen on every crystal ship began showing the same thing: human soldiers training for combat. But this was not normal military training. The footage showed humans fighting in environments that would kill most alien species. The Zephyrians watched in horror as human soldiers trained in the vacuum of space with no protection except thin suits. They saw humans diving into pools of liquid nitrogen, practicing combat at temperatures that would shatter crystal beings into dust. They watched humans fight each other with bare hands, bleeding and bruising themselves for what they called practice. Captain Frostwind, commander of the crystal destroyer Ice Shard, stared at his screen in disbelief. "This cannot be real," he said to his crew. "No species trains by hurting themselves." But his communications officer had run scans on the broadcasts. "Sir, these transmissions are authentic. The humans are really doing these things." The footage continued. Humans trained in chambers filled with poison gas, learning to fight while their eyes watered and their lungs burned. They practiced combat in crushing gravity that would turn most aliens into paste. They threw themselves off high cliffs and called it training exercises. One particularly disturbing video showed human soldiers fighting inside an active volcano, protected only by special suits that barely kept them alive. The narrator's voice was calm and cheerful. "Today's exercise will help our troops adapt to combat in extreme heat environments. Remember, pain is just weakness leaving the body." The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Their species avoided discomfort at all costs. The idea of deliberately causing themselves pain was completely alien to them, but the humans were just getting started. The next day, the broadcasts reached the Colliery bioships. The hive mind processed the new information with billions of connected brains, and for the first time in centuries, the Colliery felt something they had almost forgotten: confusion. The footage showed human entertainment. Movies, games, books, and sports that all had one thing in common: violence. The humans seemed to enjoy watching conflicts. They created fictional stories about wars and battles, then watched them for fun. The Hive Queen herself examined the data through a million eyes. She watched humans play a game they called football, where they deliberately crashed into each other at high speed. She saw them practice something called boxing, where they hit each other in the face until one of them fell down. She observed their martial arts, where they spent years learning hundreds of ways to hurt other beings. "They celebrate violence," the Queen's thoughts echoed through the hive mind. "They do not fight because they must. They fight because they want to." The most disturbing discovery was human history. The Colliery analyzed thousands of years of human records and found something terrifying. Humans had never stopped fighting. When they were not fighting other species, they fought each other. When they were not fighting wars, they invented sports that simulated combat. When they had nothing to fight, they fought nature itself. The broadcasts showed humans climbing mountains that could kill them just to prove they could do it. They showed humans jumping out of aircraft for fun, diving into shark-filled waters for sport, and racing vehicles at speeds that could tear them apart. One video that especially disturbed the hive mind showed a human woman swimming across an ocean filled with deadly creatures. When asked why she was doing it, she smiled and said, "Because it's there." The Colliery could not understand this. Their hive mind was built on cooperation and shared safety. The idea of seeking out danger for pleasure was completely foreign to them. The third day brought broadcasts to the Vorthan energy fleet. These beings of pure plasma and electricity thought they understood the nature of conflict. They had been born in the hearts of exploding stars and considered themselves masters of destruction, but the human broadcasts showed them something they had never seen: creativity and violence. The footage displayed human weapons that seemed designed by madmen, guns that fired thousands of bullets per minute, bombs that could level entire cities, chemical weapons that could poison the air itself. But what disturbed the Vorthan most was not the weapons themselves, but how humans thought about them. The broadcasts showed human engineers discussing new weapon designs with excitement and joy. They talked about improvements and innovations in destruction as if they were artists working on masterpieces. Lord Vorthan Nexus, the plasma being who commanded the energy fleet, watched footage of human soldiers testing a new explosive device. When the weapon created a mushroom cloud that reached into the stratosphere, the humans cheered and congratulated each other. They are not just warriors, Nexus realized with growing alarm. They are artists of destruction. They create new ways to fight like others create music or poetry. The broadcasts continued for weeks. Every day brought new revelations about human nature that disturbed the alien forces. They saw humans practicing with weapons in their spare time. They watched human children playing games that simulated warfare. They observed human athletes competing in events designed to test their ability to endure pain and hardship. One broadcast that reached every ship in the Coalition fleet showed a human documentary about their military history. The narrator spoke in a calm, educational voice while showing footage of humanity's greatest battles. Humans have been fighting for survival since we first walked upright, the narrator explained. We fought predators that were bigger and stronger than us. We fought diseases that killed millions. We fought each other when we disagreed about how to live. We fought nature itself to build cities and farms. And when we reached the stars, we kept fighting because that's what humans do. The documentary showed human soldiers from different eras. Ancient warriors with swords and shields. Modern soldiers with guns and armor. Space Marines with energy weapons and powered suits. All of them had the same look in their eyes, the look of a species that had never learned to surrender, but the most disturbing part came at the end. The documentary showed interviews with human civilians, ordinary people who were not soldiers. When asked what they would do if aliens invaded Earth, every single person gave the same answer. They would fight. A farmer said he would use his tools as weapons. A teacher said she would protect her students with her life. An old man in a wheelchair said he might not be able to walk, but he could still pull a trigger. A child, no more than 10 years old, said she was already learning how to fight in case she needed to defend her family. The message was clear. Every human was a potential warrior. Their entire species was prepared for war in a way that the galaxy had never seen, but the humans saved their most effective psychological weapon for last. On the final day of broadcasts, they sent a single message to every ship in the Coalition fleet. It was not a video or a document. It was just text that appeared on every screen simultaneously. We know you're watching. We know you're listening. We know you're afraid. You should be. See you soon. The message stayed on the screens for exactly 60 seconds, then disappeared. No matter what the alien technicians did, they could not trace where it came from or how it had reached every ship at once. That night, for the first time in their military careers, thousands of alien commanders had trouble sleeping. They began to wonder if they really understood what they were facing. The humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were something new and dangerous, something the galaxy had never seen before. In his private quarters aboard the Eternal Glory, Admiral Vexver studied intelligence reports about human psychology. One phrase kept appearing in the analysis: when the going gets tough, the tough get going. The galaxy held its breath. For the first time in recorded history, every major trade route fell silent. Merchant ships that had carried goods between stars for thousands of years suddenly disappeared from space lanes. Civilian transports that normally moved millions of passengers each day sat empty in their docking bays on Riloth Station. The largest trading hub in the galaxy, Administrator Kelter watched the departure boards with growing unease. Where normally hundreds of ships would launch each hour, now the massive bay doors remained closed. The station that housed 50 million beings from 1,000 different species was emptying as fast as transport could carry them away. "Sir," his assistant said, tentacles trembling with nervousness, "the last civilian freighter just left. We're now officially at minimum crew only." Kelter had managed the station for 40 years and had never seen anything like this. "Even during the Vorthan Rebellion, trade continued," he muttered. "Even during the Crystal Wars, merchants still moved goods, but this is different." Beyond the station's massive windows, space itself seemed different. The usual streams of ships moving between systems had vanished. The constant chatter of communication traffic had dropped to almost nothing. Even the background radiation detectors were picking up strange fluctuations, as if the universe itself was nervous about what was coming. Ancient species that had observed galactic politics for millions of years were retreating to their deepest shelters. The Watchers, being so old they remembered when the galaxy was young, sealed themselves in temporal bubbles and would not emerge until the crisis passed. The Eternals, who lived between dimensions, simply vanished from normal space entirely. On the bridge of the human battleship Indomitable, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood before a massive holographic display showing the tactical situation. The display was mostly red, representing the overwhelming alien forces positioned at the edge of human space. The small blue dots representing human ships looked impossibly outnumbered. "Final count, Admiral," reported her tactical officer commander, James Park. "Coalition forces number approximately 2 million combat vessels. Our fleet stands at 1,800 ships." The numbers should have been terrifying. Over 1,000 alien ships for every human vessel. But Admiral Vasquez had built her career on fighting impossible odds. She studied the display with calm, analytical eyes. "What's our assessment of their coordination?" she asked. "Poor to moderate," Park replied. "They have 800 different species using completely different technologies and tactical doctrines. Their command structure is a mess of competing egos and ancient grudges. Some of their ship designs haven't been used in actual combat for centuries." Vasquez nodded. "And our people? Every ship has been in combat within the last 2 years. Every crew has trained together extensively. Every captain knows exactly what's expected of them." Park paused. "Morale is actually higher than normal, Admiral. The crew seems excited about the challenge." This was perhaps the most remarkable thing about the human fleet. Faced with impossible odds, surrounded by enemies who wanted to destroy them, the human crews were not afraid. They were eager. They moved through their ships with the calm efficiency of a species that had been preparing for this moment their entire evolutionary history. In the ship's recreation area, off-duty crew members played cards and shared stories. Sergeant Maria Santos, a veteran of the Outer Rim conflicts, dealt another hand while her squad mates placed their bets. "Remember the siege of Kepler Station?" she said, arranging her cards. 60 pirates against our squad of 8. Command said it was impossible. Corporal Tom Briggs grinned. "Yeah, and you said that just meant it would be interesting." "Exactly, and what happened?" "We won," the squad said together, laughing. This scene was repeated throughout the human fleet. Veterans shared stories of previous impossible battles they had won. Younger soldiers listened eagerly, not with fear, but with anticipation. They wanted to add their own stories to the long history of human military victories against overwhelming odds. Meanwhile, on the coalition flagship Eternal Glory, the atmosphere was very different. Admiral Vexver stood in his command center, surrounded by holographic representations of his fellow commanders. The discussion had been going on for hours and was growing more heated. "The humans have shown us their psychological warfare," said General Frostwind of the Zephyrian forces, his crystalline form flickering with angry blue light. "They think they can frighten us with their barbaric displays. We should attack immediately and end this foolishness." The Hive concurs," replied the colliery-voiced speaker, a biomechanical creature that spoke for billions of connected minds. "Our analysis indicates that delayed action only allows the humans more time to prepare their primitive tricks." But Lord Vorthanexus, the plasma being who commanded the energy fleets, was not so certain. The humans' broadcasts were not random displays of violence. They were carefully chosen to show us specific things. They wanted us to see their training methods, their cultural relationship with conflict, their psychological preparation for warfare. "You suggest they were deliberate?" asked Admiral Vexver. "I suggest they were a warning," Nexus replied, his plasma form crackling with uncertainty. "Think about it. Why would a species facing annihilation spend time on psychological warfare? Unless they believed it would give them an advantage somehow. Commander Velther of the Hegemony Tactical Division brought up new intelligence reports. Our spies have provided disturbing information about human military doctrine. They do not fight like any known species. They adapt their tactics during battle in ways that suggest individual creativity rather than predetermined strategies. Impossible, scoffed General Frostwind. Military effectiveness requires rigid discipline and predetermined plans. Random creativity leads to chaos and defeat. Perhaps for our species, Velther replied. But humans seem to thrive in chaotic situations. Their military history shows a pattern of turning disadvantages into advantages through unconventional thinking. Admiral Vexver reviewed the latest intelligence summaries. Every report painted the same picture. Humans who became more dangerous when cornered, soldiers who fought harder when facing impossible odds, commanders who found victory in situations where any rational species would surrender. One report particularly troubled him. A coalition spy had infiltrated a human military academy and observed their training methods. The young humans were taught to think independently, to question orders when necessary, to adapt to changing situations without waiting for permission from higher command. This is contrary to everything we know about military effectiveness. The spy had written, "How can an army function when every soldier thinks for themselves? How can commanders maintain control when their subordinates are encouraged to make independent decisions?" But the spy had also noted something else. The human cadets showed no fear of death in battle. They spoke of dying for their species as if it were an honor rather than a tragedy. They prepared for sacrificial missions with enthusiasm rather than reluctance. They do not fight to live, the report concluded. They fight to win, even if winning costs them their lives. This makes them unpredictable and extremely dangerous. As the final hours before the projected engagement ticked away, both fleets made their last preparations. The coalition forces ran final systems checks on weapons that could destroy planets. Their commanders reviewed battle plans that had been refined over centuries of theoretical study, but something was wrong with their preparation. For the first time in their military careers, alien officers found themselves doubting their certain victory. The human psychological warfare had planted seeds of uncertainty that grew stronger with each passing hour. Captain Zetkroll of the bio-cruiser Living Weapon noticed that his normally confident crew seemed nervous. During combat drills, they made small mistakes they had never made before. During briefings, they asked unusual questions about human tactics and capabilities. "Sir," his weapons officer asked during the final staff meeting, "is it true that humans train by fighting each other to unconsciousness?" "According to intelligence reports, yes," Zetkroll replied. "And they do this for entertainment?" "Apparently." The weapons officer's biomechanical face showed confusion. "How does a species that hurts itself for fun react when enemies try to hurt them?" It was a good question, and Zetkroll realized he did not have a good answer. On the human side, final preparations proceeded with methodical calm. Admiral Vasquez walked through her ship, visiting each department to check on her crew. She found them focused and ready, displaying the kind of quiet confidence that came from years of training and experience. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Rodriguez was making final adjustments to the ship's power systems. "How are we looking, Chief?" Vasquez asked. "All systems operating at 110% of rated capacity," Rodriguez replied with a grin. "I've squeezed every bit of power I can out of this old girl. She's ready to dance." In the weapons bay, Gunnery Sergeant Thompson was supervising the loading of ammunition. "Guns are loaded and ready, Admiral. We've got enough firepower to make the aliens regret they ever heard of Earth." The first shot of the largest war in galactic history was not fired by the massive coalition fleet. It was not launched by Admiral Vexver's flagship or the crystal weapons of the Zephyrians. The shot that started everything came from a single human patrol ship called the Defiant. Captain Lisa Chang commanded the small vessel with a crew of only 12 people. Her ship was tiny compared to the alien dreadnoughts that filled space at the border. But at exactly 0600 hours, she received her orders from Admiral Vasquez. Cross the line. Make them shoot first. Chang smiled as she read the message. Helm. Take us into Coalition space, nice and slow. Let them get a good look at us. The Defiant moved forward, crossing the invisible boundary between human and Coalition territory. Immediately, alien sensors locked onto the small ship. Warning messages flooded the communication channels in dozens of different languages. Human. Vessel, you are in violation of Coalition space, came the transmission from Admiral HFY's flagship. Retreat immediately or face the consequences. Chang opened the channel to respond. This is Captain Chang of the human ship Defiant. We're just out for a morning cruise. Nice day for it, don't you think? On the bridge of the Eternal Glory, Admiral HFY stared at his tactical display in disbelief. One ship, he said too. His officers, one tiny ship against 2 million. Are they insane? Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human vessel is not retreating. It's actually moving deeper into Coalition space. HFY had commanded fleets for 2 centuries, but he had never faced a situation like this. Every military doctrine said that smaller forces retreated when faced with overwhelming opposition. But the humans seemed to be doing the exact opposite. Fire a warning shot, he ordered. Maybe that will bring them to their senses. The Coalition fleet opened fire with enough energy weapons to melt a small moon. Beams of pure destruction converged on the tiny human ship from every direction. The aliens expected to see the Defiant vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The Defiant's experimental shields held. The small ship was surrounded by a bubble of energy that absorbed the incoming fire and converted it into power for its own systems. The more the aliens shot at it, the stronger it became. What kind of technology is this? Demanded General Frostwind. From his crystal flagship, Captain Chang's voice came across all Coalition frequencies, calm and cheerful. Thanks for the energy boost, folks. Our batteries were running a little low. The Defiant returned fire with weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, the human ship fired something that looked like controlled gravity waves. The attacks passed right through Coalition shields as if they were not there and struck the alien ships directly. 3. Zephyrian destroyers lost power immediately. A colliery bio-cruiser began spinning out of control. A Vorthan energy vessel flickered and went dark. Impossible, whispered Lord Vorthan Nexus. Our shields should stop any known weapon. Unknown weapons, unknown defenses, Chang replied, somehow hearing his private transmission. We humans are full of surprises. Admiral HFY realized that. The single human ship was not a mistake or an accident. It was a message. The humans were saying, this is what one of our smallest ships can do. Imagine what our real fleet can accomplish. All ships, HFY commanded, converge on the human vessel. Destroy it immediately. But as the Coalition forces moved to surround the Defiant, alarms began screaming throughout their fleet. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures. Approaching from deeper in human space, the human fleet had arrived. Admiral Vasquez led 1,800 ships against 2 million alien vessels. By every measure of military logic, it should have been the shortest battle in galactic history. The humans should have been crushed in minutes. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The humans did not fight like any known species. Traditional galactic warfare followed predictable patterns. Fleets formed orderly battle lines. Ships engaged enemies at maximum range with their most powerful weapons. Commanders made careful decisions. Based on tactical analysis and predetermined strategies, the humans threw all of these rules away. Human ships moved in seemingly random patterns that confused alien targeting systems. They used weapons in combinations that made no tactical sense. According to galactic military doctrine, they attacked when they should have retreated and retreated when they should have attacked. Captain Rodriguez of the human destroyer Thunder ran his ship directly through the middle of a colliery battle formation, firing in all directions. Vessels should have been destroyed by concentrated fire from 50 enemy ships. Instead, the colliery found themselves shooting at each other as the fast-moving human ship disappeared between them. This is impossible, the colliery hive mind thought. In unison, tactical doctrine states that small ships cannot survive in the middle of enemy formations. Guess nobody told us that, Rodriguez replied over the communication channel. His ship emerged from the alien formation intact, and immediately attacked another group of vessels from an unexpected direction. The crystal ships of the Zephyrians tried to use their freezing weapons to disable human vessels by lowering their temperature to absolute zero. They discovered that human ships had been designed to operate in the cold vacuum of space and were not affected by temperature-based attacks, but the humans had studied Zephyrian technology for years. They knew that crystal beings were vulnerable to specific sound frequencies. Human ships began broadcasting sonic attacks that shattered the crystalline hulls of alien vessels like glass. General Frostwind watched in horror as his beautiful crystal ships broke apart under the human sonic assault. "How did they know our weakness?" he demanded. "We've been watching you for a long time," came a human voice over the communication channel. "We know everybody's weaknesses." The Vorthan energy beings tried to overwhelm human ships with pure plasma fire. They poured enough energy into their attacks to melt asteroids. But the humans had developed weapons specifically designed to fight energy-based life forms. Instead of trying to block the plasma attacks, human ships absorbed them and redirected the energy back at their attackers. The Vorthan found themselves being destroyed by their own weapons, Lord. Vorthan Nexus felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "They are using our own power against us," he reported to the Coalition Command. "How is this possible?" "Humans are really good at learning from their enemies," replied a human captain. "Thanks for the free energy." As the battle continued, the alien commanders began to realize something terrifying. The humans were not just fighting, they were learning. Every time an alien weapon failed to work, the humans adapted their tactics. Every time an alien defense proved effective, the humans found a way around it. The human ship Indomitable found itself surrounded by 20 hegemony battle cruisers. Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical situation with calm eyes while energy beams hammered her shields. "Ma'am," reported Commander Park, "we're outnumbered 20-1. Recommend immediate retreat." "Negative," Vasquez replied. "Signal the thunder and the lightning to execute flanking maneuver 7. Let's show these aliens how humans fight when we're outnumbered." The 3 human ships suddenly changed direction and attacked the alien formation from 3 different angles simultaneously. They moved so fast and unpredictably that the alien gunners could not track them effectively. Within minutes, half the hegemony ships had been disabled or destroyed. Admiral Vexver watched the tactical display with growing horror. His overwhelming advantage was disappearing ship by ship. The humans were winning through tactics that made no sense according to everything he had learned about warfare. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we've lost over 300 ships. The humans have lost only 12. "How?" Vexver demanded. "We outnumber them 1,000-1. "They're not fighting like any species we've ever encountered," the officer replied. "They ignore standard tactical doctrine completely. They seem to make up new strategies during the battle." This was exactly what was happening. Human commanders were adapting their tactics in real time, responding to alien movements with creativity and improvisation that the enemy could not predict or counter. Captain Martinez of the human cruiser Relentless found herself facing a biomechanical monster ship from the colliery fleet. The creature vessel was 10 times larger than her ship and armed with living weapons that could adapt to any attack. "This thing is learning our tactics," her weapons officer reported. "It's adapting to our fire patterns." "Then let's not give it time to adapt," Martinez replied. "All weapons random fire. Change targeting every 3 seconds, keep it confused." The human ship began firing weapons in seemingly random patterns, switching targets and attack modes so quickly that the bioship could not adapt fast enough. Within minutes, the massive alien vessel was drifting helplessly in space. The first day of battle ended. The impossible had happened. The human fleet had not only survived, but had begun to advance. Ships that should have been destroyed were pushing deeper into Coalition space. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Her fleet had lost 60 ships, but the Coalition had lost over 800. The odds were still against humanity, but they were getting better. She opened a